the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing. Scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. AVWeek.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio, visual, news, and information. If you're going to be picky, you can also say audio, video, and news and information. I don't care. My name is Tim Albright. I'm your host. It's the Friday before Labor Day. This will be an interesting show. That's all I'm saying. To make it interesting is George Tucker, who's looking up for some reason right now. Okay. Hi, George.
Hi.
He's the engineering coordinator for World Stage. He's also... Today, he's my entire brain. I usually say he's the left side of my brain. Today, he's it. He's it, folks. So
you're going to be able to solve quadratic equations but not balance your checkbook.
Can. And do it with a Yonkers accent.
Yonkers. 152.
Oh, whatever. Forget about it. Forget about it.
Hey, I was born and bred in the Hamptons, so what does that say?
Yeah, I was born around cornfields. I live around cornfields, and most likely I'll die around cornfields.
So what you're saying is you're a cornfield.
I'm a cornfield. I'm a cornflake. Being born and raised in Illinois. That or soybeans. So, also with us from just down the street, sort of. In my Midwestern brain, Steve Greenblatt is just down the street from George. He's the chief muckety. He's the chief muckety muck at Control Concepts, and also the host of our very own State of Control. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Doing well. And also, last but not least, not to be outdone, but he's in the real time zone. That would be the Central Time Zone. Jamie Trader from AMX. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing there?
Doing good. This week we got some interesting little back and forth. First of all, we've got some, let's call it residential-based stuff, which is unusual for us. Typically, if we talk resi stuff, it's all about displays, which we do have a couple of those. But there have been some interesting developments over the last couple of weeks when it comes to control and home automation and some DIY stuff. So we're gonna kick that around. Also, going to tackle Google, right? And the reason we're going to tackle Google, or at least talk about them, is they're spending a little bit of money. And I say a little bit of money for them. It's a lot of money to me, but a little bit of money for faster infrastructure and internet and what that means. And also, something we've talked about on this show more than once, but it has now gotten into the realm of electrical contractors, and it's a EC Magazine is a resource we pick up from time to time. They're talking about recurring revenue in the electrical contracting world, and so I want to talk about that a little bit and how they're finally grabbing onto it, and something that we've talked about before. So, all right, first up from the world of CE Pro. Let's see if I can figure out how to show this on the screen again this week. PEC, I believe, is high, or PEQ. Let's just put it that way. PEQ. Home automation will finally be sold at Best Buy with quote-unquote eye control service. Now, here's what you've got. And by the way, this is being recorded on the 29th of August. This says you can buy it on the 31st, so knock yourself out. 2 more days. George, we'll start with you on this. And no, actually, Steve, we should start with you. What is this going to do when it comes to not just home, but guys who live in residential, like our buddy Rich Fagoza, right? Mm-hmm. But also to the pro people, and this is the reason why I ask it this way. You've got the standard, the iPad. I can do it in my house, so the executive brings it into the boardroom, and I want it to do, I want this to look and feel like my house. How much of an impact is this going to have on guys like Rich, but also on guys like you and me who deal in the residential and the education world?
I look at it from a couple of different ways. One, I think that it's good for people to really be able to grasp what we do and the complexities of it, the challenges, the value of it, because when you do ask somebody what you want when you're talking about a truly custom system, they have a better sense of what they do like and what they don't like. And I think having something that's a lot more tangible, and especially when you're speaking to people about what it is that we do, the ability for them to grasp it and to be able to own something that they've put in and that they've been able to master on their own gives them a good sense of what it entails. So I think that on that side of the fence, it's a lot of value. On the other side of the fence, people I think will undervalue what we do because of the fact that they can go and get it and do it themselves. So you know you could look at it from both sides. But personally, if I were to pick one, I would say it's a good thing, and I like the fact that what we do and the automation world is becoming a lot more tangible and available to everybody.
Okay, Jamie, you work and live and breathe the AMX world, right? You guys are one of the major players in automation and control. Is Steve right? Is this going to help, control become more of a household name and make it, more user-friendly, let's say?
I think it absolutely accomplishes that mission. It definitely makes it, just more accessible and more available. I think the market that this is really appealing to is a market that isn't being served, and these are guys that are comfortable, doing things on their own. They have a set of expectation of just base fundamental controls, and it's not so much about, if you look at what these things deliver, they don't deliver very tailored, unique experiences. And I think that, the more that we can make these types of technologies available to that a specific market segment, it really validates a higher end market that basically says, I want to have, I've got people that want to have a curated experience, and this is where Steve and high-end professional programmers with a lot of competency and a lot of time and market really can refine and really bring fresh and more value into the market space. That when you look at products like PQ and the, as I think the term Julie used was bajillion other products that kind of serve this space, is, it's really that this has served a market that hasn't been served before. And I think that what it kind of does is in the residential space, it kind of does something that's very familiar in the commercial space. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole there, but I mean, I think that what you're seeing happen in the commercial space is a migration away from curated experiences and more just how do we accommodate technology to accommodate productivity, which kind of takes some of the art and some of the flair out of the products and product choices. So I think it's great. I think they're great. I think they're neat toys. I think they're neat technologies, and they definitely satisfy a need that just isn't being served currently.
All right, George. One of the second longest running show that we have is DIY, right? And one of the things that I saw when I saw this was those very people, Tim Gray and Zadi and the gang, John Danforth. Actually, you the one who started that show. Is this kind of what this is? Like kind of to Jamie's point, people who are used to and comfortable in that world. That's who this thing is marketed towards.
I think he's right. Yeah, this is the educated consumer, as that ad used to say. Although I think they are pushing for that mass acceptance where it's plug and play. They're all chasing the Nest. They're all chasing that dream utopian infrastructure where you simply buy it, plug it in, and it says, "Hey, who do you have in your house? Good, we can control that."
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it automatically downloads it. Still to that same effect, this is the way you get people in. Now, the Tim Grays of the world and the Anthony Zadis, they're looking at some other like do-it-yourself stuff, which is even deeper down. I mean, they'll play with this stuff, but they really want to go with I can't even think
X10.
of yeah, well, not X10, but there's yeah. Don't get me started on X10. You know what that does.
I know.
And I'm being calm. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. They're gone, so I don't have to worry.
Well, that's true. although a very good friend of ours still uses it to control the lights in his house. I won't mention any names.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
But he has a CTSD and I don't. So.
Well, and he got a free
in a Cracker Jack box.
You know what? If I had that, I probably would still be using it, cursing it every day. But I would. No, seriously. This is an interesting idea. They're all chasing that Nest effect, and I think someone's going to catch fire. And then the job is to make that curated experience possible within the bounds of that. I mean, look, we have to admit that as technology gets faster, as technology gets smaller, some of the things we relied upon that were our bread and butter are going to go away into this domain because they just have to. The technology is going to catch up.
Okay, so let me and Jamie, I'm going to start with you. It's going to be unfair. I apologize beforehand. Who is going to get that nest effect? Is it AMX? Is it a company like AMX or a company like you guys who has the ability to? I mean, you guys have got the background, you've got the pedigree, you've got the the 10,000-pound engine behind you. Is it that, or is it a company like this, or a company like Nest, or maybe a smaller company who has some, I don't know, crazy college kid cranking away in his dorm room?
I don't think it's any one particular company. And if you look at all the market trends and just what's happening in technology in general, there's a sheer saturation that then fuels interest and fuels a lot of things. I think the question you're asking is basically, I think, more of a 10, 15, even a 20-year trajectory question. It's where does it all distill down to? At what point do all this, it's kind of looking back in the rearview mirror 20 years ago saying which social media platforms are going to reign, and it kind of distills down to one or two simple answers, whereas there's been 8 billion things that people have explored and gone toward. Is it going to be AMX? Is it going to be Crestron? Is it going to be any of these boxes? I don't think it's any one manufacturer. Part of convergence towards the cloud and offering services like this is how many people can also contribute into that experience and what unique contributions can be made into those types of services. The only thing where I get, and this is just a personal, this isn't AMX talking, this is Jamie talking, the only area where I get concerned is where's the point on subscription services model in a consumer market. Now, I sit there and I think about how many things do I subscribe to on a week-by-week and month-by-month and year-by-year basis. And when you start thinking about how many things you get recurring charges of, your security, your cloud storage, your Netflix, your DVRs, your Xbox Lives, your productivity software for personal use and home use, and now all of a sudden we're adding on layers of I want to just pay services to be able to make my garage door opener open my door at a certain time. At some point there's got to be a breaking point to where people feel a whole bunch of money outflow, but they no longer appreciate the physical and tactile things that they own and are experiencing. So there'll be a breaking point, and I think that it'll be interesting to see where it comes out, but I don't think there will be one reigning winner, if you will.
Yeah.
On that point, you bring up an interesting point about subscription services. 10, maybe even 5 years ago, okay, we call it 6, everybody was fighting against the idea that you would have a subscription service that would be your main document place, like Google Docs or Microsoft does on the cloud. We balked at not buying CDs and having subscriptions, as you said. I don't think we're that far away from people saying, you know what, it is just like my cable, and if I want it, that's what I'm going to spend my money on.
Yeah. And
I think there's an in there. That physical graspy thing is for us old guys.
No, I agree, but it's at some point there's the threshold of what am I willing to pay monthly money for.
Yeah.
I don't think we're near or close to that line. Don't get me wrong. I think there's going to be a whole lot more monthly spending that'll go on, and I think you nailed it. I think in the home market it really points more towards who am I already spending money on, and if it's my cable provider, does that cable provider become more of my service provider and then become more of my lifestyle provider, my home lifestyle provider? That's, I think, more of the filter where you see it going, but I still think there's going to be some point where, let me put it to you this way: there's still a consumer base out there that still refuses technology in general. I mean, I'm still getting used to Texas lifestyle. I've still got neighbors in a really nice neighborhood that don't even have sprinkler systems because it's just too fancy and too much of a pain in the butt. They don't believe in it, right? So I mean, there's always going to be a spectrum of human types out there. Some who appreciate technology and some who don't. So it'll be interesting.
No, it will be, but you also have the culture of, we talked about this before, where technology is pushing from the home back to the corporate, and part of that corporate back to the home is the idea of services, right? I mean, 99.9%, I mean, I'm not going to say every, but nearly every network sale that goes on, there's a service contract with, right?
Yep.
You almost can't get one without it. And what those service contracts do is it gives you, this, that, and the other. And that idea is coming back to the home when it comes to services, right? Whether it's your cable company providing control, or security, or your security company providing control, or it's Netflix or what have you. I mean, that's kind of where we're heading towards, where a lot of stuff we're doing now is service based. Go ahead.
Well, think in the commercial space where we're successful at service contracts. When you look at networking and IT business models, look at Microsoft contracts, Cisco contracts. Where we get really successful is where the services begin to subsidize the hardware. Well, even look at cellular technology for that matter too. Anywhere where a consumer can start to see that they're either going to spend money here or they're going to spend it over here, services become much more attractive when I know that I'm paying for the whole functionality and I'm paying for the experience. What I think is interesting right now is in this phase we're at with PEQ type products is we're still asking someone to spend significant amount of money on hardware, and then we're also asking them to spend money on a week-by-week basis. My comfort with paying for cloud storage is I'm not making a hard drive purchase.
Yeah.
When it comes to home automation, I'm much more willing to have a monthly fee if I don't have any upfront costs on hardware. So there's a lot of issues that come into service contracts, and one of the things we see happening right now is a lot of low voltage integrators are recognizing that they need to basically they need to enhance their company bottom line by growing incremental revenues, but they're still in the mindset of needing to make the money on the hardware as well. And these are guys that are going in and trying to sell services. They're recognizing that they're trying to sell services after they've delivered something, and they're saying, hey, we really need to sell this upstream. We need to sell this when we're actually bidding the projects. Unfortunately, in the low voltage world, a lot of those technologies that go in and are bid at a construction point aren't things that end customers have a tactile, experiential feeling with. Things like security and access control and stuff like that. That's infrastructure. That's drywall, to a lot of end users. Whereas when you get into network service contracts and Microsoft, the buyer gets involved in it during the construction process because those are about business productivity. And I think that in the low voltage contractor world, where you're going to see the service contract really, the service contract model really reign, is where the low voltage contractors leverage the AV discussion and they leverage the productivity technologies into that to get the buyer's interest and to get them to listen at the point of construction versus the point of implementation.
Well, and this actually leads into a very nice segue into another one of our other stories. Again, I mentioned at the top of the show from Electrical Contractor magazine. They write about a lot of their contractors, which are whether it's fire or alarm or what have you. They leave a lot of those maintenance contracts to other people, and the writer Claire Swedberg rather. Writes, look, guys, this is something where your maintenance and service contracts have got to be kind of wrapped in already. Steve, whether it's guys like you and I, Steve is a independent programmer. I'm Innovative company I work for is an independent programming house. How do we start that conversation? Whether that's with clients that we work with, or with whether it's our brethren like George's company, World Stage. Not only do they do live staging and events, but they also do integration. How do we start that conversation with those companies and say, look, guys, you got to start wrapping these in, like Jamie said, you got to do it on the front end.
I think that all that stuff is relationship based. So you're buying into a relationship, and you're buying into building that you have that confidence exists. So somebody is at a point where this is something that it's an easy sell up front before you actually do the project, and those pain points may not have been identified where they may run into an issue, and they may not know where they need to rely on something like a maintenance agreement. I think becomes a lot harder. Usually when we're in these situations, we've done the work, and as we're doing the work and we're building that comfort level, that's when we start to introduce, hey, what can we do to extend this relationship, because it seems to be working and it's something that I think that is going to be of value to you, and we want to be there for you when you're having difficulties, and we want to be able to continue to support you. And let's put an agreement in place so that we can make that official.
All right, George. From your guys' standpoint, like I mentioned, World Stage is not only a live staging and event show company, which if you haven't followed them on Facebook and you're interested in television, you should, because every fall and I think every winter, is there an upfront every winter?
Yeah,
as well?
no, every spring.
The spring. They do almost all the upfronts
in New York.
In New York, and it's really freaking cool. But anyhow, so
thousands of LED tiles. Thousands.
Yes, absolutely. I can't get George on the phone between
yeah, around that time.
And neither can his wife.
That's true.
But how do you guys start the conversation with your clients? When it comes to this whole services idea.
Well, this is something we started long ago. I remember the birth of it, where we were like, and with the same resistance I think many integrators have, is what we had was, it's labor intensive. There's a lot going on. You always have to be responding, and is the revenue worth the outlay, and can that really work? I guess to put it in social media terms, is there an ROI that really matters here? And there is, because as Steve was saying, it is a relationship, and it's about not just getting recurring revenue, but about fostering that relationship. And something that my boss, the owner of this company, Josh Weisberg, taught me a long time ago was, you call them clients, they're not customers. Because clients are relationships, customers consume. We're not selling to consume. We're selling to build solutions and things. And that was the sort of manifesto that we did that by, where you can do it, and you can send guys on regular stuff, and you can make money out of it, even when the emergency stuff happens and you feel like you're going to be pulling your hair out. You plan for it, and that always leads to, it's been a great relationship, we've had a little bit of trouble, but we're ready to expand, and we want you guys to do the following. We're not even bidding, we want you guys to do it. That's the kind of things that happen. You did it out of the goodness of getting a little bit of money, but also keeping them alive and always running. And you know what? Down the line, that really does foster paying forward and getting something for it. So, again, it's a client, not a customer. That's really what it's about to me.
Well, and Jamie, George makes a good point. Yes, services are a nice revenue stream. And I shouldn't say a nice revenue. It's a revenue stream. It's another revenue stream for integrators in the AV industry. But it also benefits the client as well, because it does keep them up and running. So as a manufacturer, how do you convey that, I guess, to your integrators? I mean, not just the AVISPLs of the world, but also the smaller companies that are a little bit more regional, or city based, one city or two city based. How do you convey that to your dealers?
I think it's easy to convey. My opinion on it is not that the value isn't understood by the buyer, and by the buyer I just mean the end consumer, the end customer, the end client. I don't think anybody doesn't get the value. I think everybody understands that there's a desire to have a guaranteed uptime, a guaranteed productivity, guaranteed functionality, where really I think where the industry is kind of struggling right now at the moment is with trying to determine how early can they sell that relationship, how early can they sell that type of guarantee in the buying process. And one of the things AMX has really been focused on over the last couple of years is what type of solutions can we generate that actually can demonstrate that AV technology can be managed into an IT deployment strategy the same way their Cisco gear, the same way the Microsoft, the same way the telephony, the same way all of the other business productivity technologies are being deployed. And I'm sure from you talking to Sean and some other folks, over the last year, you've probably seen a lot of the things that we've done with RPM and RMS. And I think it's really just about demonstrating that there's a much larger investment in technology than the actual original spend. You've got 90% of your actual equipment costs come in how you maintain and sustain that equipment. So we're just really educating end users on, and I shouldn't even say educating, we're really just talking in terms that they've already been using for the other gear, and we're engineering solutions that make those aspects of the technology purchase almost as important as the technology itself, things with RPM and RMS.
Yeah, and that was one thing that we as a company has started going down is RMS and getting our programmers trained on the not just AMX's remote management software, but others as well. Because you're right, it is a very here's the thing, it's a good tool, right? It's a good tool not only for integrators, but it's a good tool for the end user, because whether it's a university or it's a Fortune 500 company, it gives them a way to manage and maintain their assets, which is never a bad thing.
Well, and here's your challenge. So the end user gets it. The end user knows that they want to be able to manage their stuff more intelligently. But typically, when you're selling after construction and you're selling to a person who's tasked with project management of technology procurement, you're selling to a guy that's been handed a bucket of capital revenue or capital spending, and that person at that buying level has very little care about what the operating impact is going to be over the next 5 years. And so, even though the end user constituency, the steering committee that's listening to you position in the technology solution, gets it and agrees, and they nod their head and they say, man, that would be great if we could do those things. At the end of the day, all the ROI comes out of operating capital that they're not tasked with. So really, to effectively sell service contracts, you're really talking about getting upstream in the decision-making process and getting into the people's ears that are actually affecting operating expense management. So there's a couple things there working against us that we all have to go and recognize and make sure we've got the right stakeholders at the table to discuss, to help them the way they need to be helped.
One of the things that I use all the time to sell it when trying to go upstream or get to that higher person was, think about when you have a computer problem. And in the old days, or and even now, you buy an accelerated video card. They will often tell you from, say, the manufacturer of the computer, oh, that's another part, you have to call them. How frustrated are you that you have to call 15 people?
Right.
Why not be the person they can trust to go to? I'm that person.
Right.
This is what's going to happen. Don't go to 15 places. I'm your conduit. Let me go call 15 people, and I'll solve it. And I think that often sees, one stream, no red tape, you're responsible, done. I mean, put it in that way, they want one person to blame. You did or you didn't do it. And it gives them an out. I can blame you. Good.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've
the one
had
nectarine. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, working in a manufacturer, when you're tech support people, they are the answer people, no matter what. Because you want to be the one who solves it, not the one who said, you have to go talk to XYZ.
Oh, don't get me started, because I've had conversations with other that bounce back and forth. So, and I may have gotten a hold of a bad, tech support person, but yeah, Steve and I have both been on the end of, have been the ping pong ball in that, haven't we, Steve?
Absolutely.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never heard of such a thing.
I know you don't, because you're above that sort of thing. Because you were the freaking paddle. That's why. So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk about. Let's cover a couple residential things real quick. First of all, Best Buy. This is a CE Pro, another CE Pro story. Best Buy's Q2 revenue was down, but they're optimistic about Q3 and Q4. Why is that, you say? I guess you can call this two words. 4K. Jesus.
And comma UHD.
Well, comma UHD and comma OLED, because they're selling an OLED 3G LG for about $5,000 or $6,000. So yeah, there you go. Steve, are we surprised about this, or the fact that this is where consumer electronics is putting all their eggs right now? Is this whole next generation? And just so it's been said, I saw an ad the other day for a camera, and it was like 1080p was this small little crappy video. They had 4K/UHD, and then they had UHD 2. I swear to God, it's already been coined UHD 2/8K. So there you go. It's already started. So Steve, are we surprised that this is where consumer electronics, and honestly, where we're going to put all of our eggs in this basket for displays?
Well, it certainly seems to be the way that things are going in our world, but I'm not really convinced that the average consumer is going to appreciate it. I mean, I still think that in some respects, there was a hard sell to get people to HD. There's people said I can't appreciate the difference, and now we have them at HD. And although I know that people do want to have new toys and new and new things to to buy and look forward to in the electronics realm, but does the average person really appreciate the difference between where they are and what 4K or 8K may bring to them? It's certainly a luxury and not necessarily a necessity.
Yeah, George, is this kind of where we're heading anyway? I mean, not to poo-poo the march of technology and the march of progress, but this is kind of where we're headed, right? I mean, 1080p leads us to 4K, which leads us to 8K, which, God help us, will lead us to 16K, right?
One would presume if all those kind of laws of iterations hold true, but sometimes I'm doubtful that they are true. I mean, Moore's law is Moore's law, but is it only just barely sometimes? And it sort of seems like at the last minute.
Suggestion.
Yeah, well, if you suggest it, some people believe it, right? I mean, the influence of it. More to the point about the company, though, I think what you're seeing is they said their online sales have grown.
Yeah.
And their distributor sales have grown. It's the box store stuff that is sort of sloped downward, and that's to be expected. More of us know what we know, and there's lots of resources out there to find the information, and maybe you go to one store in the area to figure it out, and then they're buying it online. Whether it's from your store or someone else's, it's about the convenience of not having to lug it home, rent a truck, all that other stuff. So the expertise is not always needed. And good Lord, have you asked any of those box store people about 4K or UHD? Have you heard the answers?
Yes, unfortunately.
And it's not their fault sometimes. They're just thrust out there. You, sell that TV.
I have a very good friend who I will not punk out on this, but one of his favorite things is to spend his weekends in box stores, using the bejesus out of poor salespeople. So, anywho,
4K and UHD. You just have to ask him, does it do both?
Yeah. I have never heard that one, so thank you. I like that. Jamie, you guys have got an interesting, a different interesting problem, and that's the infrastructure. Many people, much smarter than I have written about the challenge of, let's be honest, about transporting this stuff, right? I mean, Twisted Pair, as much as we all love it and bow down to it, it ain't going to get, you can get 6 feet, I think, that's it, with 4K. So what are your guys' challenges as a manufacturer, dealing with 4K and 8K?
Well, I think the challenges are pretty. They're everyone's challenge, and it's exactly what you said. Category cable is it's very influenced by extraneous factors that we don't govern at a manufacturing level, and and all of us kind of struggle from the same environmental issues and impact on it, and so does the need to distribute higher and higher definition content lead us more towards more and more glass and away from copper? Maybe, maybe not. Chipsets will continue to increase bandwidth and capability, and it's just really the challenge is making sure that when we're exploring the new chipsets that we're using ones that don't bring in more problems than what they're actually solving. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. When the next set of chips come in and we can push more stuff down the pipe and we can start manufacturing cards that actually accommodate it, but then making sure we do it in a responsible way. I think glass answers a lot of problems. I mean, the box itself is a pretty easy thing to manufacture. Say that laughingly. But at least we can control that environment. We can control the box. We can control the card. We can't control what's going to wrap around that stuff out in the field. As far as Best Buy, I think one of the interesting things about Best Buy and looking at 4K and 8K and UHD and everything else that comes down the pipe, I don't see them as really looking at that as the saving grace from the technology itself being something new for them to sell, and that's where they think they're going to get their revenue growth from. I see them looking at they're pitting their hopes on 4K and all the upcoming signals, because those are all technologies that really require somebody to come in and experience. And as much as Best Buy complains about the showrooming effect, for almost 3 years now, they've really been vocal about the impact of the internet and how it's turned them into a free showroom. There's research all the way back to 2011 that points out that 40% of buyers that are walking into a store with a mobile device, or 40% of buyers that are walking into a Best Buy have a mobile device and their shopping prices right there in hand. And of those 40% of consumers that are walking in there, 97% of them are buying the product that they're looking at in the showroom, the Best Buy showroom. They're buying it online for cheaper somewhere else. So I think that there's this recognition that they have a showrooming problem, but yet, how have they changed their business model to accommodate that human need to go in and experience what does 4K mean? How does 4K feel to my eyes? They haven't changed their business model. One of the things I think you'll see happen is at some point they're going to recognize that, they are influencing. I think it was in 2013, they had measured that they had influenced $1.8 billion worth of technology revenues just in one holiday season.
Wow.
Not that they actually sold and moved all of that revenue through their stores, but they influenced it. So at what point did they say, let's take out the shopping lanes, let's take out the checkout aisles, and let's make this a physical online store? And what types of things can I do to, maybe I lean on the manufacturers to lease their spaces to them and let this be their showroom so that they can curate a more brand experience around their technology, versus them trying to feel like they're needing to make money on the transactions of each pieces of hardware. So I think it's an interesting thing they're highlighting, and they're really keying in the fact that 4K is something you have to experience. 3D is something you have to experience. Whatever the goofy next thing is that comes down, that's where they need to make the money, but they're going to have to change their business model to take advantage of it.
That is an absolutely if anybody ever takes that, you owe Jamie money.
Amen, brother.
No, seriously, that's
Amen, brother.
Good idea. Because you here's the thing, what you do, you take down the size. I mean, we've got one here locally, not in Alton, but just down the road. It's huge, right? It sells, refrigerators as well as CDs still, and DVDs, and they have a cell phone. You get rid of all that stuff. Get rid of all of it. Get rid of the car stereo section. Get rid of and lease yourself, I don't know, 500 square feet, enough to put up, a dozen or so TVs. Make the lighting right. Get everything. Get yourself a good 4K source, which there isn't any really currently. But get yourself a good 4K source, and push it and show folks exactly what it is. I mean, that's my biggest problem with buying things exclusively online, is because I still like to see it, right? You can look at the specs, and specs and stats still lie. So I want to physically see it. So there you go. I mean, you get your decent sized rent and show a bunch of displays, and if somebody wants to buy it, you can sell it to them right there and do the whole online, virtual online thing like you was talking about.
Yep.
I like it. Let's do it.
You just made a commercial real estate person pucker. You know that, right?
Yeah, you know what?
Space.
Well, I imagine I just made a bunch of manufacturers pucker too, because I also just said in there, let's go ahead and make the manufacturers responsible for the showrooming.
Exactly.
Right.
Economics.
Charge them rent space.
Yep. Well, I mean, the question is, what most people buy on emotion. Regardless of specs, a lot of people buy on emotion. And you used to be able to say in a box store, I want it now, and I'm going to get it. You haven't. And the price is, okay, they're across town, or it's going to take 6 days. No, I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. It doesn't take that long to ship things anymore, and it doesn't always, the pricing sometimes in these hard economic times has outweighed that. But what do you do to bring that back? And it's service, and it's information, and it's having better trained people, like you said, showroom it, make it a smaller space, make the manufacturers and that outlet be a distribution point, but then give them information. Have seminars. Sit them down and say, here's what it is. Here's the difference. I mean, most people with HD, for years we said, I don't notice the difference. And then you see something truly shot in HD on our native HD, and you went, oh my God. And now you look back and go, oh, what were we watching back then?
You're still watching standard def on an HD display. That's what you're watching.
Yeah. I mean, I had that aha moment in this company when I was sitting there, like, for Shaw, and they brought it in, they displayed it, I turned around and, like, damn, I fell off my seat. Because it was like, wow, now that's brilliant.
What was one of the first cable channels was some Nature.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it, but it was a Nature
HD Networks.
The HD, exactly what it was, the HD Networks, and almost nothing but these giant flyover shots of Yosemite, or Glacier Bay, and this and the other. Gorgeous.
Well, gorgeous. Captain New York, I think, was one of the very first off-air broadcasts in HD they were doing in New York. It was all part of the testing, but There's a regular series, and if you got wind of that, it was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
All right, let's talk about touch panels for a second. And this is a stretch, and I'll admit it straight up, it's a stretch, but we're gonna go there. From innovateonthenet.net, Nike has created a futuristic all-LED basketball court. If you've ever been to a basketball game, you know exactly how big a regulation basketball court is. Well, Jamie, I want to order a basketball-sized touch panel, because that's what this sucker is, right? The specs on it and this, that, and the other are on the link. We'll put it on the show.
Actually, I don't think it's touch panel though.
Well, it's not. It records your movements, right?
Motion tracking.
Yep.
But it could be a interface, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, think of what motion is. Motion is reacting to coordinates.
Exactly.
Yep.
So there you go. So I want it to control my control system.
Why do I have a vision of like? Wait! I have a vision of you controlling your house like Big when they do the piano.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think that I think that thing was one of the coolest things I've seen. I mean, I hate to say it because that there's a lot of flash and glam associated with it. And I think a lot of people could look at that and go, "Oh, that's crazy," but that really excited me. Only from the standpoint of I hate basketball. So I should preface everything I'm about to say by saying I'm not a basketball guy. But having said that, I look at the potential. Everything that's on the internet about what they can do with that is all the obvious low-hanging fruit, which is the training needs, the advertising needs, all the stuff that you can do with that kind of interactive floor. I'm looking at it as a non-basketball fan going, oh my gosh, I can actually create a canvas to accommodate sport variants. I can start to change rules. I can start to, I can add dynamics to the game that didn't exist before with a static canvas. So that's where I get excited about it. But I tried to find more about the economics of it, and all I could really find was that, similar, LED floor technologies used for, dance floors and disco floors. I mean, you range in price from anywhere from, $900 a square meter to $1,500 a square meter, depending on pixel density. So just for the sheer floor elements alone, for a basketball court, you're looking at almost $750,000 just for the floor, just to get the fiber elements in there or get the light elements in there. I'm curious what they're actually invested in that thing.
Well, it's Nike and Kobe Bryant, so it's not cheap.
Yeah, and in China, so they're willing to spend money.
No, but that power balance it, right? Kobe and Nike, but it's in China, so.
China's willing to spend the money though these days. They're the ones. There's another site called Design Boom that covers this. It was done by the folks at AKQA with Nike and a couple of other, they don't say who the install company is, but I think it's the LED provider manufacturer.
Yeah,
But they're 16 centimeter by 60 centimeter squares. They overlace and interlace with these things, and it's just amazing. I suspect it's a lot of infrared quadrant and maybe some RFID type thing. I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but you have to keep track of them.
The RFID would be difficult with that. I'll give you the laser quadrant, but do you think RFID?
There's got to be something else going on because you have so many people moving. How do you keep track of each individual? When you do motion tracking in normal like video wall stuff or LED wall and convergence type stuff, you're using multiple cameras to track an item with an LED identifier, and it knows where it is and then interpolates that information. Yada yada yada. Maybe they're doing that here too, but it looks like they're doing a lot more than that. But I just had a sudden thought to Jamie's point. I couldn't see this working in hockey because you have to look down at the ice. But for baseball or basketball, if you could make it so that the performers, the athletes, don't see the imagery, but those above do, it could change how you view sports entirely.
Well, football as well, too.
Yeah, football too, yes. And maybe you could do it for hockey if they don't see it. Maybe you have what are those the little art with the two levers that if you look up, you'll see black. If you look down, you see an image silhouetted or something.
Hockey's, though, a little bit more reflective, like the actual surface,
Yeah, but I could just see that, it almost looks like a video game if you watch the video. It looks like they're in a video game.
You could bring back the glowing puck. Remember that?
Oh, don't you dare.
The glowing
puck.
I know George didn't. I love
Oh, yeah, when it wound up in the audience half the time. It's not really. They're those two guys digging at a red thing in the middle of the crowd.
If you don't know what the blowing puck is, you youngins, when hockey started getting more and more popular, Fox Sports, back in its early infancy, picked up the rights to NHL hockey, and they actually made the puck glow so you could follow it
on screen. Yeah,
and
it would get red and fast when they
yes.
left shot.
Yeah, the trail was very nice.
Awkward together.
Yeah. Steve, you got anything on this one? We're going to throw this into somebody's touch panel system or control system.
I would agree with a lot of that's said already. I think it has a lot of good training tools. I think it could, it's very cool for somebody who would like to be able to analyze a game a little bit more. I think the football part of it would be very cool if you're really into the strategy. It has a lot of application. I don't know how much of it is going to be something that is going to come into our world, but I think that if we could do something, it could provide some value to a sports fan, and I appreciate it.
All right, a couple things before we let you guys get out of here. One thing is, last week on this very program, we were challenged to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, and we took the challenge. Crestron challenged us, and we called out our friends over at Commercial Integrator, as well as Margot DeWahi and Infocom, and there's our buddy Craig McCormick getting ready to do said Ice Bucket Challenge. So Commercial Integrator has at least picked it up, and I'm not going to play the video for you because it gets weird with the Hangouts and stuff. But there he is getting ready to do the Ice Bucket Challenge. Apparently, Tom LeBlanc is on a beach somewhere and refused to do it. So I shouldn't say refused to do it. He probably would have done it had he been not on vacation. So good for them. Good on them. Also, we've got a couple of other things real quick. We mentioned at the top of the show the PEQ home automation thing. And something else real quick, and I honestly I should have brought this up when we did the original story. But Chamberlain, this is from CNET.com. Chamberlain MyQ Garage is actually getting into the smart home space. And CNET did something interesting, and they called it a gateway drug for home automation. George, is that accurate? I mean, is this kind of how we're going to get into DIY home automation, stuff like this? Yeah, you're muted there, George. I mean, that's typically how I like you. But...
There you go. Is that better?
Yes.
Sorry. It got really loud in here. I have forklifts going back and forth sometimes. I'd rather annoy me than annoy everybody else listening.
I got
so let me start again. I think it's a pick your poison. What's a gateway drug to you is not to me. So for, I guess, somebody with a home with a garage, that's a great gateway drug towards, hey, I need this, as the article states, I need a camera, maybe I need another thing that helps me understand that. It looks like a solid product, although it's one of a plethora of other ones, and just like the other product that we reviewed from Best Buy, it'll catch somebody in a certain segment, and as Jamie said, I don't know who's going to win, if anybody. It may be a deal of cobbling together the best, and 20 years from now they all merge into one or something, but all restaurants are Wendy's.
You know what? Yeah. That wouldn't be a bad thing. No, it was Taco Bell, wasn't it? It was Taco Bell.
Taco Bell. Sorry.
All restaurants are Taco Bell. Good movie, by the way. Good movie.
I love this jingle.
Jeez. Seashells. That's all I gotta say. All right. If you don't know what we're talking about, Demolition Man. So go check it out on. I don't know if it's on Netflix or not. So I would imagine probably not. Maybe it might be. Also, real quickly, AV Nation will be at CEDIA in 2 weeks from this very moment. Actually, 2 weeks from this very moment, we'll be ready to record AVWeek live from CEDIA in the CEDIA booth. So check come by and say hi. Booth number 1550. One of the sponsors, which surprised the heck out of me, is Tivo, of one of the sponsors of CEDIA, and they have some interesting plans for CEDIA, according to multichannel.com. One of the things that they're getting into, if you remember who Tivo is probably not the originator of the DVR, the digital video recorder, but one of the people who made it popular. Steve, we'll kick it off with you on this. Where do you think that they're going when it comes to DVRing and some of the stuff they're getting into is cloud storage and streaming as well? So are they just kind of trying to reinvent themselves to stay relevant, or is what they're doing, maybe really revolutionary?
I think the thing that Tivo has going for them, and they always have, is similar to why Kaleidoscape was a leader in what they did, is that they had the great user interface. It was very easy to use. People liked it. They liked the sound the remote made, and it just was. I have Tivo, and I've never varied from it. The cable DVR to me was just wasn't as good of a product in terms of usability. The difficulty is that it didn't keep up with some of the advancements, and the ability to record more shows and be able to watch things in different rooms had lagged, I think, or had not been as seamless. And I personally would like to see them come out with something great. I think the cloud would be a wonderful solution to not have to worry about the storage, and that's kind of my take on it.
Right. Mr. Trader, where do you think that Tivo's going with some of these changes?
I think they're looking at the eventuality of everything going through the provider, and what they've really done with Romeo is they've really Romeo, is that what they're calling it now? Romeo, yeah. They're really trying to figure out, how do I position myself in with the provider. So I'm going to give you a box that actually provides more integrated value than anything you've been currently distributing. I'm going to let you brand it up, and consumers are going to like it, and they're going to like it in ways that they haven't liked the other DVRs you've issued, because we're going to give you a single interface, to Steve's point, a really good single user interface that allows you to search for content on one single box, right? And if I'm thinking that I want to see, a Family Guy episode, and I search in Family Guy, I don't want to just first search what my broadband provider is carrying me, and then switch TV inputs over to my Roku or to my Apple TV or something else, and then search again on those devices for what kind of internet versions of episodes may be available to me. Let me just search once. I've got Family Guy in the mind. I want to go see where I can find my Family Guy episodes. I think that they're really looking at. Yeah, it's really just let me give you a single. You're up.
You had a little bit of lag there.
Just a little.
A little. Give him a break. It's Texas. They have a big area.
That's that red wall.
It's George. Where's Tivo going with this?
Well, I think Jamie said a good point is that they have two choices. Do they try to align themselves with a cable/content provider to be their main device, or do they rely on the relationship and the loyalty of their customers? I think the latter, in my opinion, is their strongest suit, because they have, of the people they have, they're loyal as all get out. I have like 3 2-series in the house, and I don't even watch that much TV. It's for my kids and my wife. Mm-hmm. And I prefer their interface. Have you seen the cable network's interface? Right. Good Lord, it'll give you stitches of pain.
Yeah.
It's just, Scientific Atlanta box. Don't let me say that word again. Anyway.
Or the Motorola one.
And yeah, well, we don't get here and anyway.
Okay, well, there you go.
I'm going to say something very spiteful about a cable company, and suddenly I'll lose all my hockey. So, Tivo's advantage.
Didn't that already happen last season? Oh wait.
No. It maybe for a little while. No, it was the last season. I can't remember. Hey, we were in the cup.
Oh.
I'll sit on that. Yeah, I know. Fergus is now going to go all over me. Their advantage is being the centralized hub. To switch between them and to have that storage capability, whether it's local and or cloud. My only question is, everybody's in this arms race about how many shows simultaneously you can record. How many shows simultaneously do you really need to record? Who on this bloody earth needs to watch 15 different shows recorded at the exact same moment? Maybe the Duggars?
Well, no. Here's the thing. Very nice. Very, very well done. The question becomes a broader conversation about the quality of television in the U.S. I don't think there's 4 shows that are on at the exact same time that's worth recording.
Naked and Afraid, Emmy Award winning. Why is it always passed over?
Yeah. Doctor Who's on at 8 o'clock at Central on Saturday night. If anybody goes up against that, they're screwed in my house. So anything other than that, I don't care. So, and I'm not going to make a comment about, the 12th Doctor. All right.
Let me make one comment in there. George, to your point, I think one thing I really agree with in terms of it holding true to its loyal constituency. And I personally think that over time that constituency is going to grow, and I think that's going to come from, you're going to see a decline in younger generations coming in and migrating away from provider-based content, broadband-based content. I mean, I'm looking at, the last body of kids that I've seen go off into school, they're not setting up accounts with, Xfinity and Verizon and all the big boys. They're getting their internet feed and maybe at best a Netflix subscription, something, at best, because, spending $200 a month on content when they're okay with YouTube and they can pretty much get everything they need from the internet. So I think at some point what Tivo is doing is kind of genius, because they're saying, look, we know that we have this huge market out there, that people that are still going to want to feel to have provided content, curated content, things of that nature. So let me give you an interface that blends all that together, but they've got a separate business model to give you your own independent subscription directly to them for the younger generation coming in and not wanting that other feed. I think it's great.
Well, and plus, from a manufacturer standpoint, look what happened to Replay. They were Replay Inside for a lot of those cable companies, and they went off and said, that's fantastic. Hey, this guy in China, you can make him cheap. Bye. We'll make our own. You're setting yourself up for the fall there if that's your only business plan, and that becomes your main business plan.
Yeah.
And they're gonna turn around and go, you were yesterday's news, thanks, and do the same thing you were doing, but just without you.
But it actually, I used to have a TiVo, and at least it helps me, makes me feel good about TiVo, because a year ago I honestly thought that they were toast. I really did, because the cable companies had done just that. I mean, a lot of them did have agreements with TiVo. DirecTV had agreements with TiVo for a number of years, and suddenly everybody and their brother had their own DVR, because they did exactly what George said. Guy in China, guy in India, guy in Korea, you can make these cheaper, right? And slap some sort of weird little interface on it, and we're good to go. So yeah, it at least, they're at least forward, more forward thinking than I gave them credit for a year ago. All right, one last story, and then I'll let you guys get out of here. And it's not really, commentary. It's more of a, hey, this is what's going on with some buddies of ours. Our buddy Chris Netto over at Red Band is doing something interesting. It's kind of a cryptic note, so I'm just gonna put it. He sent me a text that, hey, talk about this. I said, all right, let's talk about it. It's not really clear what he's doing, but according to his blog post on AV Challenge, he is getting rid of Red Band, or at least decommissioning it, as it were. And George,
there's nothing showing up on screen, by the way.
Oh, well, then there you go. No, well, I'll just keep talking. Are you showing up on my screen? Huh?
About decommissioning.
Yeah. So, oh well.
Yeah, but he's got it right. He's decommissioning is what Red Band is saying they're doing.
Yes. Yeah, they're decommissioning themselves, and apparently in a week or so they'll announce something else. So there you go. Good luck to those guys. That's all we've got for this week. Have a fabulous 3-day weekend if you get it off. I don't. So yeah, I've got a lot of programs to write. So, Mr. Steve Greenblatt, Chief Muckety Muck at Control Concepts. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Where can people find you or Control Concepts?
Well, as you said, about 2 weeks I'll see you at CEDIA, and if you still haven't registered yet as a CEDIA tweep, use CT6 as your code. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter at Steve Greenblatt. Company website is controlconcepts.net.
Very good. Jamie Trader, live from Big Old Texas and AMX by Harmon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Tim, and hey guys, all of you, really appreciate everything you're doing here. It's a great community you guys have really been building up, and I really appreciate just being brought in for a few words here and there.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Where can people find you or AMX?
You can find AMX at amx.com. Find me personally, jamie.trader at amx.com, and definitely look out for us on all the major social areas like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter at AMX Talk. Keep up with what's current.
AMX Talk, indeed. All right. And last but not least, my buddy, my pal, Mr. George Tucker. Where can people find you, sir?
At Tucker2s on most social media platforms, Commercial Integrator, Corporate Tech Decisions, and ramblings here and there.
All right. Also, you can find
usually
him
on the street corner.
Usually on the street corner with a sign that says "The end is nigh."
Yeah, disheveled, you know.
I will was going to say something about the end of the world and Armageddon, but yeah. Anyhow,
Great movie.
yes, it was.
And Steve Buscemi was in it. He's in every movie.
He's in every movie. He is, and pretty good actor too. So a firefighter for NYFD too.
And a damn nice guy.
Very nice guy. So, why are we talking about Steve Buscemi? George is also on a number of other shows. I mentioned DIY. From time to time, you'll catch him on that. But you'll find him on the Lighting Guy show. Well, sometimes. You're at least involved with the Lighting Guy show.
Yeah, James Fidel, who is the main guy on that, he does a lot of it is interviews with lighting people, lighting designers, and education on lighting techniques for the Integrator. So some of it's basic stuff, some of it's interviews with people changing the paradigm, as it were. Also, just to fill in for you, Pico Perspectives is having a new episode come up. The Live Life is undergoing a change, and we'll bringing on some new hosts and some new ideas, and you'll see that shortly at the end of the month.
All right. Also, we're going to have a new episode of AV Social, which is kind of highlights. Don Mead taught a class at Infocom this summer at Infocom 2014, so we'll have highlights of that. Very course, a new EdTech is up. Steve and I did a new State of Control last week, so that is up as well. Also mentioned a couple times, we're going to be at CEDIA. Yay! You can see our pretty faces live and in person. Friday, September 12th. We're going to be doing AVWeek live from the CEDIA booth 1550. So come by and say hi. 1 o'clock Mountain Time, I believe. And then the CEDIA version of the Tweet Up is coming to also CEDIA. Also happening in the CEDIA booth. They're being very nice to us. Happening at the CEDIA booth. Again, booth 1550, 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Come by, sir, for some free food and drink and some networking. That one is sponsored by Restaurant and Middle Atlantic Products. They've been very nice. Gave us some money so we can give you free food and drink. So come by for both of those if you would. And Jamie, are you going to CEDIA?
I will be out there on the Harmon floor. Yes, sir.
All right, we'll come by and say hi.
Stop by and say hi. Yep.
Yeah. So, also, I talked with our good friend Becky Villarreal from Middle Atlantic, and I know they're not a sponsor anymore, but I'm still going to talk about this. They're doing something very cool. If you like craft beers, and I'll preface this by saying that, if you like craft beers,
and who doesn't,
you might want to, well, some people don't like beer, some people like wine. You might want to go by the Middle Atlantic booth. Let's just say that they have contacted most of the craft breweries in and around the Denver area, and you will be able to partake of said craft beers from in and around the Denver area.
Now you're just rubbing it in, aren't you?
I am, because I'm going to have one for
rubbing this in and making me feel bad. You bastard, I tell you.
Grab a red eye. There's all kinds of flights out of New York.
Yay.
So, yeah.
I better see a picture of you drinking at least one of them, because somebody's got.
I will send you at least one. Yes, at least one. So, but yeah, you go by there and go by the Harmon, the Harmon booth, which will have AMX in it as well, because AMX is now by Harmon. So, but yeah, all of that stuff again brought to you by Middle Atlantic Products and Crestron. The Tweet Up, Friday, February. Why am I in February? Friday, September 12th. CEDIA booth 1550 from 4 to 6 p.m. Go by the website if you would, please. The people who do it have spent an awful lot of hard work. avnation.tv. avnation.tv. Find this program and all the ones that George has already mentioned. Blogs and news and all sorts of really fun stuff. So avnation.tv. avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been AV.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.